and then we can get that amazing thumbnail out. So with that, we're now going to go on to this next one. This is going to be TheoRy versus Mixu. Now, oh yeah, well, TheoRy wins because Infernals have won every non-mirror. Ha ha ha. Okay, well, there's more to the game than that, actually. So, I've talked about this multiple times. We're going to speed through it. Whoops. Sorry about that, Artosis. So, we've talked about this multiple times, but the first map being Secluded Grove is very good for the Infernals player because the Infernals player has a very easy game plan. If you haven't heard it before, here's the very short version. You either pick whether you want this second base and this third base, and you defend here and here, and then you just go grab a fourth and you attack down this path, or you say, I want 1 base, 2 base, 3 base, I'll use the middle to be bases number 4 and 5, and again, I'll attack down this center path, like this lower right-hand path that connects the 2 vision towers. So, something I like about what TheoRy does is that he is doing he does do a 1 vault opening. This is very good. I mean, this is what we see Parting do. And Parting ends up going undefeated in this event, so that's you know, a pretty good sign. It also might be a sign that he's just like mechanically that good that the rest of the decision-making processes didn't matter, but trust me, as a person who played a lot of DDR and had very, very, very good cardiovascular health and speed, but didn't have good timing, just trying really hard without any motivation for trying or practicing correctly actually puts you in a bad spot. So, he's probably on to something here. Iron Vaults make Brutes. Brutes are 190 hit points, 95 Veil-based units that by the time they get to the other side have 0 Veil if they're attacking, and this ain't it. Okay, so something I want to stress is that we see multiple times in this tournament Vanguard versus Infernals. I think that the Vanguard player, I love what Azure does. Azure says, I'm fast, I have, you have Brutes, I have Scouts, I'm going to make something happen. We're going to put in some Lancers and Hedgehogs, and we're going to make some wonderful things go on from here. Right? I'm going to use my speed, basically. I don't like the fast expand that we're seeing over here from Mixu. Now, you might say it's results-based analysis, it's the favored word of people who are doing, like, criticisms, but it just doesn't look like if the opponent goes for... It just doesn't look like if the opponent goes for one vault and sends a brute, that you can have anything ready in time. Like, okay, your barracks finishes with your expansion when the brute gets here. Now, you might think, well, this is fine. I just overcharge, I defend, everything is good. And the problem is, they made an iron vault. They don't just have to have one brute show up, right? The only thing this brute is doing is being very, very, very cautious not to actually get surrounded and die, because I'm pretty sure that you get bonus damage and a different or more resilient armor type whenever you're under the effects of the overcharge, right? But here's the thing, TheoRy does just send the one brute. We've seen Parting send more than one at a time, right? Parting seemingly just goes and grabs like 3 of them, sends them, and asks you if your micro is good enough. TheoRy's not doing that. I actually think Mixu is getting the better of the micro off of this Lancer. Now, I will say it's kind of easier for the Lancer, a little easier, because of the range that it has over the Brute, but considering the Brute wins the straight-up fight, the Brute can split into 2 Fiends if it needs to. Then yeah, that's looking really dodgy. We also see from this already in the game what TheoRy's plan is on what the third base will be. TheoRy seems to subscribe to the block this off, take these 3 bases. I personally would prefer that he take the base down here in the hook and try to secure the center. We're going to see how much grief Mixu actually gives TheoRy over the course of the game, because TheoRy did not go from main to natural to hook base and then stir up into the middle. This is actually going to keep Mixu in the game for quite a long while and make it very difficult on a map that I frankly think is quite Infernal favored, or at least has a very easy, relatively easy Infernal attack plan. There's going to be another overcharge used here shortly. This is also why I would have liked this building to be built down here. I know the reason that it wasn't is that the Brutes could have killed it. There's no way one Lancer and these Bobs could have defended, but I also think that this is something you've just kind of opted into. Oh, this Brute is dead. It's a good split, but these Fiends are also going to die. or one of the fiends is going to die. This is also something you've deliberately opted into by having a fast expand build. Yep, poor dead fiend. Now the meat farm coming up here means that you either have a meat farm and 2 Shroudstones, or I think you can have a Shroudstone and 2 meat farms if you're starting to get gaunts or units out like that. So interesting to note actually that the brutes are a little bit slower than. Also, the attack point on these units is crazy. We can't tell if this is moving shot or if this is just how quickly the unit moves. It looks like there's a move command being applied afterwards to stop it from just continuing on into forever. So, by the way, if anyone who is watching has any questions or has something that they want to say that would not in any way violate their NDA, then feel free to go ahead and say it. Makes it easier to do the analysis if there's also something to piggyback off of. Now, I want to note that the Hedgehog, the Hedgehog here is going to get the kill, or the almost kill. I actually think that the way that brutes work make one of the indirect nerfs that I believe happen with brutes to the Vanguard playstyle is that Vanguard wants to kill units because they get unit veterancy. Like, they get basically experience points and stat buffs if they have if they have enough experience based on units they kill, and you can just split the brute and say, no, you don't get that kill actually. Yep. And some fiends for a Lancer is actually a pretty good get, especially when that brute was going to die anyways. Oh, my neck. There's going to be a lot of damage here, and eventually this is going to split into the fiends. The fiends are going to run back over here, and actually now you have something like 3 fiends, 3 Fellhogs, and double Shroudstone is coming up, and Mixu is not Azure. He doesn't have like that same aggressive desire, and this is also something that we see pretty commonly when you do a fast expand build, is that you can be out expanded because you're not putting on any map pressure. So the first thing he's going to do is he's going to check round the outside. He sends his Hedgehog go in round the outside. Now this is very unfortunate because this Hedgehog is dead. This is like the last. This is like pictures taken moments before disaster, right? I want you to pause, look at this. Boom. It was at that moment the Hedgehog knew he fucked up. So when you see your opponent has double shrouds and meat farms and the static defense from the meat farms for fell hogs, and it's all just like going to shit immediately and in all directions, your thought should be, I expand immediately. Right? And the problem is, because all of those static resources had to be built before any action could then be taken, right? Well, I want to go ahead and I want even more economy. Well, you can certainly have more economy, but you do realize, like, you have to have the defenses, or if your opponent pierces the defenses, you're just dead. It's just over. And so we're going to see a couple of attempts here to get some hits on with Hedgehogs and Lancers, but I actually think this is something where Mixu is kind of lost in the sauce, I guess, thinking that they can do some damage here, and there's pretty much no chance for damage to actually be accomplished. This is where I think like an Azure-like play style of just saying, okay, I'm just going to go expand everywhere else, thanks, would serve you a lot better. There's a lot of pathfinding block, and there's a lot of path blocking and damage that's over there. We do see a third base is coming up, and it's the hook base. It's really hard on this map for Vanguard, because if you send the base down here and you're doing this Lancer thing, or Hedgehog Lancer, you actually don't have the speed quite to keep up with everything. I think the hook base is still better because you can put more static defense there more readily. Everything goes well, right? And we are going to see some good harassment over here on the top side that is behind the expansion. So this isn't bad in any meaningful way, right? The problem is that you just can't have the forces join up at any point. They just can't join up. And so, while there's going to be some destruction of buildings and there's going to be some harassment, and the Shroudstones will take some time to go up, and you're going to see a little bit more back and forth, this is very much delay to buy time for the third base to go up for Mixu. But Mixu has to answer a question that Vanguard players across the game are struggling to answer right now, which is, what the hell do I do when my opponent can just make brutes? Because if you don't know, brutes can split into fiends, which fiends are about as fast as hedgehogs, right? And that's kind of scary. That's kind of a big deal. Now, there is a speed benefit over here, but there are now enough brutes that the pop can happen. I call it the pop because you just see the screen just erupt into an explosive mass of stuff, right? Well, we should be seeing it shortly. And so, yes, you did break down the rocks, you got down a little more damage, but you actually didn't kill that many more fiends. You just forced indirect damage, right? You made you forced more buildings to be created to make sure that the three bases can be held. That's probably as much damage as you can reasonably expect to do. And at this point, although it feels scary and terrifying, you either have to have an economic response, as in have more bases faster, or you have to have a military response, which is a way to straight up cleanly kill all of the fiends when they pop, no questions asked, the first time around. This is actually where I think Azure's plan, this is the point at which Azure's plan works well. I want to emphasize what Mixu is doing here. So you got some extra indirect damage. You're going to be taking the hook base, which is going to be good because you could put some static defenses in front of the entrance of the hook and make it really easy for you to defend a lot of fiends. Multiple iron vaults are coming down because this map, again, if you can get this around and there is a spoke, there's a hub in the center of the map, and so it's very easy to surround your opponent by attacking from one side and then using your fast units to call the other. And in that reason, actually, the vision camps are extremely important. I want to note here that because we've heard too much about how, well, there's nothing you can do, actually. TheoRy is just defending here, right? TheoRy has no map presence whatsoever. If we were to see the map vision for TheoRy, it looks like their bases and their defense points, and that's pretty much it, right? Now, we are getting to the point where there are enough of these units that we're going to see a pop, and the reason that we care about this is that the Hedgehogs are going to lose their speed advantage, which means it's going to be very difficult for them to actually get any purchase on the rest of the map, and then we want to see what Mixu does from here. So I want to note these are all brutes. All of them are brutes. 190 hit points, 95 Veil. That's the white health, by the way. I'm pushing for that to actually get called Veil. And we do see a split of all of these units over here, but is it enough to actually surround? No, until you look at the minimap and realize that the answer is yes. Yep, because there's a lot of fiends that are attacking. There's an overcharge. There's a whole collapse, and also that green gust that you just saw was Infest. It's a Shroudstone ability. It counts retroactively all of the units that have died around you, including your allied units. And if you have enough of it, you generate a thing called Animus. And one of your Animus abilities is that if you activate it over enemy, it's a global that you can activate over any area on the map, and units that are ally or enemy that are in that area that die for a period of seconds are infested, which means when they die they generate fiends. These are all fiends. So do you think this is bad? Oh yeah, this is really bad. Like with all of the hedgehogs dead, all of the map control is dead. The hook base never actually got to sit the defenses outside of the Therium to defend against the mass push. And now, yes, well, these fiends do have the disadvantage that they will die slowly over time. We see this in Beast versus Rax a lot in Little Wargame. Yes, you have inexpensive, you have units that aren't as great in a straight-up fight. But if you can ever trade your units for your opponent's units, you massively celebrate because your ability to replenish your supply is greater than your opponent's, and their units are thus worth more. Also, if we get to a ball versus ball state, you have a decreasing number of returns on your fast, weak units compared to your opponent's slower, stronger units, right? The more units they have, the more surface area that they have, the harder it is for you to get a full surround. And so it might look like, why is he just trading all of the fiends down right here? It's brilliant. It's actually just the right thing to do. Now, once the Vulcans are out, Vulcans fire in a cone of damage. They will Shrek fiends, but notice that the Vulcans are out before all of the med techs are out. And also something I want to stress, and this is a point of much frustration for people in other games where their faction is slower than another, is that, yes, you might have the army to straight up win the fight, but they don't have to commit to the full fight. And so we see harassment going up over here for the third base location. And now there is a fourth base that's down. The own hook base has been taken by TheoRy. And yes, the combination of Lancer Vulcan will be able to clean up these fiends. That is true. Unless there's no front line, but even so, like, look at all of the unit veterancy for the Vulcans is already sick, but the third base is down. It's 2 bases versus 4. There's not really any way to advance forward here. There was just too much defense placed, even defense placed over here on the left-hand side, and it looks like the gambit of the 1 Iron Vault forced the early pressure worked off, and this is all backed up back to the point of where Mixu went for a fast expand, and I don't think that the current timings or build for what was done by Mixu with the fast expand actually don't allow a proper seeming response in this game. We didn't see a proper seeming response to Iron Vault expand. And that actually meant that they also gave away the opportunity for TheoRy to just go up to 3 bases immediately. And yes, it was expensive to guard those 3 bases. But once the 3 bases happened, there was one final point of interaction that really mattered, which was, do you get the mass surround on the Hedgehogs? If you get the mass surround on the Hedgehogs, your opponent has no map control, the game is over, and that's where we see the GG, right? TheoRy has controlled the center. He has done something that's actually quite different than what we saw in the previous Vanguard versus Infernals series, which is, if you're ahead, just control the center and make sure on Secluded Grove, make sure your opponent can't grab the double. Then you don't have to do this dance of what they own, what you own, and how you pull them out of position. You don't have to deal with any of that, right? You just kill them. They just straight up die. Good stuff. Soda time. So that was game 1, and I want to notice that was actually on, of all things, that's on Secluded Grove, right? It's a 10-minute game, 10.5-minute game. Very, 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 very good map for Infernals. Very hard for other people to deal with, I think, for Vanguard to deal with. All right, so now we're on Broken Crown Hinterlands, and we saw what Azure was able to do on Broken Crown Hinterlands. For those of you who don't know, you basically get 1 base Hedgehogs into a 2 base aggressive push onto the tower and tower up the low ground of your opponent's natural, and then ask them if they're really sure that their plan of getting a fast 3 bases is good. Let's see how TheoRy deals with this. Also, let's see if Mixu goes for it. Hello, darkness, my old friend. We're playing on Crown Hinterlands. Because the natural I am sieging. Anyways, we're not here to listen to Simon and Garfunkel's horrible rendition of The Sound of Silence by myself. Scout gets in here and sees the information. I have asserted multiple times that this map is actually quite good for Vanguard. Like, if you just look at the tools that Vanguard has versus what Infernals have, regardless of whether or not Infernals are overpowered or underpowered, which is a whole conversation I can get into later. This is a pretty good map for them, because there's a central causeway that you don't want to interact with. There are 2 fiends here. One is probably going to break down the area of the third, and the other one is going to expand. And I want to note, actually, that the scout has kind of missed an opportunity. Oh, wait, it has rediscovered the opportunity, and it is going to poke here. Again, I know that there is a brute right here. I think you take the split opportunity. Like, if your scout can harass these units to the point that they can't fight back and the brute splits into 2 fiends, your opponent did a 1 Iron Vault opening. If you went fast expansion, which we can see Mixu did in fact go for fast expansion, causing the brute to stay at home and defend is a massive, massive advantage, right? When the fiends split and get to your side of the map, they'll be at half health and out of veil, right? Or something like that. So I actually disagree with the choice of Mixu to pull back. I know that there are other benefits for going away. Mixu's going to go pick up the other pickups that are on the map, get some extra Luminite, get some Therium, right? Get a health pickup, take things away from his opponent. And that makes all sense, right? But it's not according to TheoRy. There you go. There we go. Not much to say here other than now, with seeing the trees get harassed, there should be an immediate understanding on the part of Mixu that TheoRy is going for a fast third base. Now, you might say, well, maybe that's just a prophylactic measure, right? Oh, thank you, Chess, for giving us the word prophylactic. Maybe it's just a prophylactic measure, right? To make sure that something gets done in advance. Yeah, but it's still something you have to account for. They're showing the game plan, as it were. The Fiends split and go back up, and there's going to be an attempt over here to go catch the Scout. Fiends are, in fact, faster than the Scout. But now the split is happening in the other area, in the wrong area, right? In the place that you didn't want it to happen. And what do I mean by that? Well, this split is happening on the middle of the map, so the Fiends can actually go and be effective to some extent and some degree. And we do see an Imp come out over here, and the Imp kind of runs away. With the Fiends and the Brutes, we are going to see, we're going to see the same thing. This is what happens when you go for the fast expansion build, and you don't take up the tools that Vanguard can actually have for it on this natural sieging this location, is there's just going to be the creation here of a Shroudstone